Hi everyone, Chris from BattleGoat Studios. I'm going to do another modding video today, continuing to talk about the scripted event system. In the first video that I did, I sort of introduced the structure and tried to define out the different pieces. I think today I'm just going to try and do some event creation so you guys can observe me working with the different event types. The other thing I've realized is that when we use events, one of the common parameters that gets used are news items or alert messages. And I haven't really dug into the news items file yet. So I'll probably get an opportunity to touch that at least a little bit. Again, we may need more videos on news items. The Supreme Ruler engine and all the files that go into it, as you've probably observed, is pretty big. A lot of places to go looking. So I was sort of thinking about how I wanted to approach this. A lot of our previous videos, I've made that World 2027 custom scenario, but I've hacked it up a little bit over the different videos. I think I want to take a different approach today. So starting from my Steam installation folder, in the sandbox, we have the World 2023.scenario file. It has its own folder, and that creates a map in the game. I think I want to make my own version of World 2023. Now, we always suggest working in the in the scenario folder, because if you do any map editing, it has to be there. Also, by making a copy into the scenario folder, it means I don't screw up my game if I want to do multiplayer with somebody else. It's going to be a lot easier to share it as a contained piece. So I'm going to start by copying the World 2023 scenario, copy it here, and I'm going to call this World 2023 B, just to differentiate it. Now I want the folder that goes with it. I'm going to copy it here as well. And they, of course, need to stay in sync, so I'm going to rename this to be B. Now I just need to make a quick check to make sure that moving this over, that there aren't some file locations specified that this is going to screw up. So let's check the dot scenario. This is my own version, World 23, oh, yeah, I guess it's based on a 2030 base. 2023 revised for events. Just so if I'm looking at it, I remember what I intended. CVP, region include, theaters, unit, people, tech tree, terrain, all these things. Default.news items. I might need an extra news items after. And then the map file. Yeah, we're going to keep using the existing map, MAPX and OOF files, the ORBATs. I'm not planning to change any of that. I'm even going to keep a lot of the events that we've already set up for this game. I am planning to put in, oh, actually, I was going to say I need to change the cache file, but I'm actually going to do this in a way that I don't need to even change the cache file. We're going to take everything that is 2023 and we're going to add on to it. The way we're going to do that is everything above this point. I've talked in previous videos about baking a cache file. Everything above that point is baked in. But once I'm into the if set 4, this stuff is applied onto the cache after the fact. So I'm going to add a new line here. I'm going to copy the pound include, and we're going to call this 2024 events. Close my quotes. And this doesn't need anything else. That's just what I'm going to call it. That's going to be the file. And this is going to append onto it after. I suppose just so I recognize that I'm playing as a different region, or that it's a different world, I'm going to change my starting region. I remember that 401 is South Africa. This will just give me a nice clue when I'm in the lobby that I touch it and it shows South Africa. I know it's looking at my version of the file. So that's all I think I want to change in the dot scenario. Very simple. Save and close. Now we'll do a quick check in the game. Sandbox scenarios. 2023B, South Africa. Great. Okay. I've created a file, and right now I haven't created that extra file, so it's a straight copy of 2023. Now what I want to do is in this 2023B folder, I'm going to create that events 2024. Oh, you see, now I already forgot. I need the exact file name. 2024 events. I'm going to copy this right now. Control C on my keyboard. And I'm going to use the content editor, asset manager, file, new, events. This gives me a blank events file. And I have the advantage because I'm creating my own set of events and all the BattleGoat content. We've increased these numbers for so long. I think we start in like the 12,000 or something like that. My event, first event, is going to be ID1. And so I don't actually need a scenario ID or scenario name. This is more for our internal data structure. And this is going to be test message. I'm just going to use a type 1 event. I did make sure before I started this, I have open on in my browser the events page from the Supreme Wiki. A type 1 is just a send message. Its main parameter is going to be the email news item. This is into the news items file. So news items, the messages that come to players, are stored in sort of two different data structures. There's one file that gives all the properties of each message, and then separately we have the actual text that it shows. So the reason the text is separate is because we want to run the text content through translation tools. So by isolating the translated text, it's just easier to work with. I'll show you the two files involved. Just for the base game, in maps, data, the default.newsItems, which is a plain text file. What occurs to me? Yeah. So I've associated this with my copy of Notepad. And you can sort of see these are all the IDs of all the messages we're using. It's just all the numeric properties, which I'll explain more another day. Conveniently, we do at least get the short text description. So you can sort of have an idea of what each message is. And again, I've worked with this stuff so long, I remember like 10 years ago, I made myself message, so I'm going to search for 1164. As modders, you guys might find these ones useful. 1164 through 1172, these are just test messages. So if you're wanting to validate some stuff, that if you think some of your events are working, some of them are not, you can just start attaching those IDs as the main parameter for some of your events. And then if you see test 1, 2, 3, you know that whatever you put test 4 onto, well, that's the event that's not firing properly. So I'm going to use 1164, test 1. Let me move some of this to my other screen. So the first ID for my new event is the comment is that this is a test message. We are using a type 1 event, which is a send message. The wiki tells us a type 1 is a send news item. The main parameter, 1164. That number matches up to the test message that I had prepared for. Now the properties, I need a little bit more here. So email news items, no integer. The floats can actually be used to change different pieces of text within the message, but I don't really want to play with that. All I really care about is who does it go to? Event DB region. And I want to check the syntax for this. I'm pretty sure I remember this, but if you want to know how to use a specific variable, the top of this page says DB region and other region. Okay, this is what I wanted. -1 is for single player use only, and it just means it'll send it to the active player. I know that I'm playing as region 401. I could have put in region 401, but I'm going to set this as -1. and then that means it will send it to active player. Later, if I change what my default region is, I should still get this message. So we've created one event. Very simple. File, export, manually export. Now I need to make sure and get this into the right folder. So my game installation scenario, that 2023B folder we made, this is where I need to put it. And I had copied the name to make sure I have the exact name for it, and it will be a .csv file. Save. Give it a moment. Now I will minimize this. If I go back to scenario 2023B, there's the file we saved. It has exactly one event. Very straightforward. And again, I don't need to recache because in my .scenario file, I've put this events file at the end as an override file. So once it has the cache, it still runs all of these pieces right here. The NATO connection that we have for the 2023 start, it's applied as an override. So if players decided they don't like the effects of 2023 having NATO, they could put 2 backslashes to comment it out, and they would just stop. No need to recache. I am going to keep NATO for mine for now. So I've got that event, close. Okay, I want to test again. I'm going to run the game. Sandbox, scenario, B, start. And we didn't put any time on this, so this should appear right away. I did not get it. Maybe because it was a day 0 event, it got suppressed. I know that we handle events that are sent at a 0 time slightly different. I'm going to, actually I might as well leave the game open while I do this. I'm just going to Alt-Tab, find my window again. So the event time. Let's put this as 0.25. That's going to be 1/4 of the day. 1/4 of the way through the first day is when it should send this event. And it's just a type 1. Okay, so I need to re-export this, overwrite my file. So around 6 a.m. Quit. Start again. Start. Roll time. I'm watching for 6 a.m. Oh, it didn't work. I'm going to pause my recording, figure out what I'm doing wrong, and be right back with you guys. All right, I have figured out the mistake that I made. It ended up being in the .scenario file. And I guess this is me working too fast, as I named the file, but I failed to recognize that our files always have to have their extensions included. So I need to add .csv. Now the file is named properly. I will save this. We still have this one event set for 6 a.m. to send the message to whoever we play as. So one more time to export and save the file, which is in the World 2023B folder. Then I will test again. Scenarios, World 2023B, we start as South Africa, start. And I will roll time, and this time, I believe at 6 a.m. There we go. And the test 1 message is set up to pause time, auto pop up, has the audio cue. So yeah, anytime you're testing scripted events, you can use this message or any in that number range that I showed. And again, to test one more thing, because this is a good way to check that the system, that I remember how the system all works as I'm sharing this with you guys, is if I go back to Sandbox, Scenarios, I pick my new one, and let's start as Algeria. The way we've set up that message, it should come up for any player. Yeah. So we have validated that we have an override file. I don't need to recache when I create this. I can start building some events with this file. Okay. Let's quit out of the game and talk about a few different kinds of events that we might use. So first one was sending that test message. We might end up removing it. And actually a thought that I had for what kind of events we might put in was to search for the timeline of 2024. What's happened so far this year? Often there's a wiki page, or 2024 major events wiki. 2024 Wikipedia. So there's a wiki entry about this year, some of the things that have happened. So on January 1st, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates became BRICS members. I suppose we could do some relation changes to other BRICS members. Sure. I'm not going to model all of these. I'm going to do some of these as an example. And that happened January 1st, which our game is going to start in July. We might not see some of these things right away, but I'll show you how to model these. And I might test them later to see if I missed anything, or you guys can try and replicate it. Let me know. So I'm going to keep a notepad open just for a second so I can track what are the things I want to do. So I'm going to do Egypt and Brazil. So Egypt relations to Brazil. The reason I want to start with something like this is I need to go gather some data. I need the region IDs for some of these. Now I've cheated. Egypt is one I always remember. It's 101. It's the first region in the system. But I'm also going to need to find Brazil. I'm actually going to launch an extra version of the asset manager. And I'm going to import the maps data. No, I guess it's using a common one. I have to go all the way to the top. Maps. I want the 2023 CVP. This is going to tell me about all the different regions. Having this open is going to be helpful. And this is one of the things is you may at times have 3 or 4 copies of the asset manager open for all the different files you want to work with. Filter this to Brazil 2303. That's the region number. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. I won't close it because I might need it again. 101 to 2303. On January 1st, we need to figure out the timing. A lot of times for us as developers, as we would plan out events, we would make a document where we would list out all the events we wanted to create, list all the regions involved, figure out the times of it. We would build a number of these in a design document, then come into the asset manager and actually start building some of these. So to figure out January 1st, I need to know how many days from our start. Do I still have my .scenario open? So this is our starting date, July 25th. And the easy way to figure some of this out is, again, go to the web, calculate days between 2 dates. I want from 07, 25, 2023 to 1/1/2024. Calculate. 160 days. Okay. So on day 160, I'm going to do event number 2. In the comments, I'm actually going to grab from that Egypt relations to Brazil. And now this event ID, we need to go back to the list of events. And I'm going to Control F to search the page. Change relations. That's a type 14. 14. If we want to use a parameter, it's going to be a news item. For development for now, I could put in 1165 to make sure it happens. Now another trick I'm going to use here for testing, it just occurred to me, an easy way to do this is I'm going to do 1.160. So this means instead of being 160 days away, it's going to happen 1 day away. Once I see that it happens properly, I can restore the number to 160 that I've already calculated. Now this time I have exact regions I want to use, 101 and 2303. So 101 to 2303. So this is going to change relations, but to understand the other parameters, I have to keep going back to the events page. Even as developers, we spend a lot of time just reviewing this. Okay, so the first integer 0, 1 is set as absolute value. If this is set to 0, it's going to adjust based on the floats. I think I want to do an adjust. I don't want to override the relations. I want to alter the relations. And this is for diplomatic relations, civilian relations, and the casus belli. So I don't think I'm going to need any of the I values. It's all going to be about the F values, the floats, which float means you can use decimal places. Diplomatic, civilian, and casus belli. Okay, with those in mind, and the purple ones are my floats. So I want Egypt to Brazil. They're now both in BRICS. I'm going to say 0.2 diplomatic, a 2%, actually that's a 20% diplomatic rating increase, a 0.05, a 5% civilian, because the population never pays attention to what's happening globally in any country. And the casus belli, here I want negative 0.1, a 10% decrease in war justification now that they have common treaty. So this is just affecting the relationships. And I suppose we could also set a specific treaty. Another search. Treaty. No, I want up. Send diplomatic treaty offer. Treaty set. So in event 5, so the event 7 that you saw, let me talk about the difference. 7 is going to make region A send an offer to region B. A type 5 event, it's just going to set the treaty. And again, so that I can know exactly the treaty I want, I'm probably going to keep it simple. You'll also notice we have linked. If I control click on this, it'll open in a new tab. We have included a list to what are all the different treaties. And again, to be able to recognize some of this, oh, and this does include some treaties that have never been implemented. This is the full list of everything we've considered going back 20 years. So just so I can analyze that this is all working, I'm going to do something simple. Where's line of sight? 30. Event number 3, I'm going to copy that. Paste is Egypt, line of sight to Brazil. We said that's a type 5. Where's my tab? Type 5, primary, the main parameter is the treaty number, which we said was 30. And this is again 101 to 2303. I'm going to have it happen 1.160 again. Integer 0, reset to take it away, 1 to set. So I need I0's value to be 1. That will activate the treaty. To two-way treaty. Yeah. I do want to set the I0 is reset. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I0 is 1 for set. The I1, we can make it have no effect for signing the treaty. And in this case, because I'm setting some relation overrides, I think I am going to tell it to I0 to have no effect. But the I2, I'm going to make it, and I2 0 is going to give us 2 ways. Okay, so 1 here means it'll set the treaty. 0 here means it'll have no effect on relationships, and 0 here means that it will be two-way. Now I've put in the zeros so I see that I made a decision on this. For the game engine, null or empty is the same as 0. You don't actually need to put it in. I think this will just help us to not get confused. So we've got 2 more events. I'm going to try and build one more thing here, just so we continue to test a few more of these. Event number 4. What else was happening in the world? Earthquake, Ethiopia, announced agreement with Somaliland. General election. Oh, we could do some leader changes. Marshall's general election. Marshall Islands we don't model. Kerman bombings in Islamic State double bombing kills 94. Bangladeshi general election. We probably already have that in as a scripted event for the game, but let's say that we didn't, or I'll use it as an example of something to do. Let's say on day 2, I want to set a lot of my stuff quickly so we'll be able to see them happen. I want to cause an election to happen in a certain region. Election in neighbors to South Africa, Botswana, I guess. Now I have to find what is the event that does an election. Election. Okay, so the event type is 20. It's a leader change event, and it can be used to represent elections as well. So here, leadership change. This is a type 20. Oops, that's my ID. Event ID, 20. Event type ID. This is, again, some of the terminology we use. There's just so many variables floating around. It's easy to get mixed up. And then I can put in 1166 for now to send a message. The region, Botswana. This is why I did not close my CVP. 405. 405. And now I don't have the next person to put in place, I don't think. But let's have fun with this. I need a person. Let me show you what I'm doing here. So this is a type 20. We've sent just a test message. Normally I would probably create a new news item that would say an election has happened here, so-and-so. Though you'd actually a leader change. I don't think we really need to put in a news item. In the internal game system, by triggering an election, it's going to have an auto-generated message, the same that happened in the game when an election comes up normally. The parameters. I0 is the new leader. If we leave it as a blank, it's going to be random. But it'll be hard for me to tell it worked right if I leave it random. We can also shift their sphere from left to right. I'm just going to play with the new leader. So I need a person. To find a person, I'm going to look back at the game's main data, maps, data. The default.pplx has all the people. And I cannot resist searching for Donald Trump. 2025. Let's make him the next president of Botswana. Okay, we have 4 events here, and right now they're all going to happen no matter what. Just a reminder that as we make more complex events, we're going to want to use these event conditional. And I could sort of set one right now, is we could say that Donald Trump only becomes the president of Botswana if Egypt gets that line of sight treaty. If I put the number 3 in here, event 4 will only fire if event 3 fires. Now this is a bit of a meaningless connection because right now there's nothing stopping event 3 from firing. But again, this should let us test all this stuff. 4 basic events to start thinking about how all this stuff works. File, export, manually export, and override. Oh, gotta make sure I'm going into the right folder, which is scenario, my 2023B. This is the one I'm overwriting. And it has an error. Oh, that might be because this extra line that I started and never used. Delete that row. File, export, manually export, events. Yeah, the null row was causing the tool to get upset. So the trick that you saw that I did there where I got the error is if you hit continue, you have an opportunity to look through the stuff. Be careful because it offers a quit option, because it is possible to get the tool stuck in a loop if things are set up really improperly. So we needed to make sure that it was possible so you didn't have to just force quit the application. That error pop-up has a quit or continue. Decide according to what you think you want. Okay, I'm going to put aside that for a second and let's go back into the game. We should be able to see all 4 of our events now. Run the game. And I'll probably stop. Time can fly really fast when you're working on these events, just because there's so much to set up. I'll probably stop the video after we've tested these, and I might do a 3rd video on events, because there's just so much we can dig into. Okay, sandbox, scenarios, 2023B, and I'll go with South Africa, start. Now before I roll, I want to look at our events again for just a second, because you'll notice these are not in chronological order. Or no, they are in chronological order, because I did this as one point. But these don't have to be in chronological order. The game will run them chronologically, but in your file here, if I'd sorted it this way, you can run into, oh no, this way. Sometimes your events look like this, that they are not chronologically here, but when the game runs them, it does do them in time order, just to be clear on that. Okay, if I roll time at 6 a.m., we'll get our warning message. Okay, so that came in. Now it might be a little hard for us to see the change, but Egypt should get a relation change and a treaty with Brazil. But that's also why we put the test 2 message on it. That should happen just after we get into the next day. Actually, I might be able to see, if I use the filters for diplomatic relations, Egypt to Brazil, I wonder if we'll see any change in the coloration. I should speed things up a bit. 3, 2, 3. Okay, sorry, I get all excited about seeing things happening. So the test 2 message arrived. So that should have all gone through. I guess the change was so small it was hard for us to tell. And we can't actually see who our ally, or who has line of sight treaties. So that's a bit harder for us to tell. The next one that should be easy on day 2. And there we go. Donald Trump is now the president of Botswana. So this gives you a little bit more insight to how, and I really didn't dig into the news items. I'll have to do another video at another point that I talk more specifically about the news items, because we just used test messages for now. But if you're starting to build, use those test messages, get things set up the way you want. Again, because we've now tested the election change, I could return these to being 160, so they'll happen January 1st, 2024. And once I have looked up, oh, sorry, that was for the Brazil thing. For the election, we wanted, where's my web page? So that happened on the 7th. So that's easy. So that's 6 days after. That should actually happen on day 166. And once we put the proper person into the people database, well, then we would be able to have the right leader arrive. I just made these changes, so I'm going to save one more time. Export, manually export, override my file. And so in the next video, I'll probably try and add maybe 2 or 3 more. Maybe we'll spend some time looking at the news items file so we could replace this message. Where is it? The thing about Egypt joining BRICS. We could make a custom message to say these regions are now part of the BRICS organization. And maybe next time we'll also actually add a new person to the people database and talk about how that's done. So if you enjoy these videos, please leave some comments down below. Let us know what sort of things you'd like us to go into more details for modding. And if you've got specific questions, you can find us on Discord or on the forums. And if you're playing the game and enjoying it, like I always say, please leave us a review. It's very much appreciated. Catch you guys next time.